Hi, Babloo.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for helping me with my project.
Sure, no problem.
So did you know that NASA's planning to send people back to the moon in 2024?
No, I was not aware of that until you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, would you believe like 90% of the people I talk to say the exact same thing?
I would not be surprised.
So, it was mentioned in the State of the Union address.
Uh-huh.
Trump is uh, proposing like the largest budget since the Apollo program for them. They're like all over social media, at least my social media feed, because I'm interested in space.
Sure,
Probably
understood.
other
Yep,
people.
yep, yep.
So, like, what more should they do?
What more should they do? I think they should probably advertise it even more because if you say 90% of the people are not aware of it, they should be really blasting it on TV that, hey, look at what United States is going to do or NASA is going to do. And we are prepping for it to send a man, an ordinary citizen to the moon. I think they should be doing that. And canvassing more heavily, try to bring in more candidates that might be more suitable because I think that's important. And it would be good to see that happening because not knowing is ignorance, really, in my mind. So.
Oh, I was just thinking about how much has changed since the last time we went to the moon. Last time we went to the moon, we had like 3 broadcast TV. We didn't have any streaming, no
Correct.
recording, no what have you.
Correct.
We had just a few little print papers. Pretty much everybody was seeing and reading the same thing.
Correct.
In its entirety. It wasn't like specifically made for them.
Correct.
So it seems like it's a higher bar today to actually get people on the same page, literally. Like it's almost impossible.
Well, I think, with knowing that there are so many outlets to broadcast something and make it uniform across the platforms, I think should not be too difficult, personally. Because if you look at even how much people use Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or even, any other platform, I think it should be broadcast all across it if that's what the intention should be. And it should be, the other thing they can do is once they go through the process, they should be advertising, doing that also, and showing how the process works and what happens in their selection process. What do they expect? What do they think the outcome is going to be? So there should be some narrative behind it or some sort of blog or some sort of like 5-minute update during the week. Hey, we received 10,000 candidates, which we did not expect.
Right.
So they should be doing something like that. I think that creates awareness, excitement among people, and to show that America can do something ahead of everybody else. I think that would be unique.
Now, one of the things they plan to do this time. Well, do you know the last time we went to the moon?
It was in the 60s.
Yeah.
69, I think, was the last.
69 was the first time. 72 was the last
72, 72, yeah.
But around that same time frame. It's only
it
3
was.
years.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So I remember that because I was watching on TV when I was growing up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
My dad also actually brought me pictures of the moon landing. I still had it in my album.
How old were you?
I was, I think, about 10 or 11.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was excited when I saw that, and you would see the moon lander on the surface of the moon, and they had the very crisp pictures of Neil Armstrong and all those guys making their first step on the moon. And I believe we still probably should have them somewhere. They were like 8 by 11 pictures, and it was just pretty amazing. I was excited when I was growing up. I used to think about space all the time.
Do you think that's contributed at all to you becoming an engineer?
I think, yes, I think I've always been interested in engineering from my childhood. I always used, like any other kid, I used to break things apart and figure out how they work. So it was always an exciting part, and I think that also did contribute a little bit because you think of the amount of effort they had to do without having modern day computers. If you really think about it, what we can do on a modern day computer is way beyond what they could do then even on a simple computer. So you got to give it to them that they were able to pinpoint the landing and mark down the exact time to take off so as to hit the moon on the right time. It's not a simple...
Oh, yeah, so much.
It's very complex. There are so many calculations you have to do just to get to the right point, and calculating all the orbits and making sure everything hits the right mark, and then you can't miss that window, takeoff window. And there's so many things involved that people just don't think
And
about.
then things go wrong unexpectedly.
Yes, exactly. And then you have to plan for the mitigation plan is not very easy, right? Because you're like, well, this is the only rocket I have. I'm not going to have 2 rockets and 2 astronauts as backup. So it's very difficult. I think it's not simple. And I think that's always a challenge. And because once you miss a window, you have to wait for the next window to come around. So.
Now, you said something interesting about whenever you were little, you took apart things to see how they work. You know, I also remember doing that too, but I don't really see that among children today. Like the technology they interact with is like really pretty much. I mean, you take it apart, you don't see anything.
Right, right.
I mean, like I don't think it's stimulating the same type of inquisitive or ingenuity that maybe you and I had when we were growing up.
I think I agree with you. I think it's all hidden in the sense that I think people have to be inquisitive by nature. I think it's important that people understand, like even if you holding the phone in your hand, is about hundreds of millions of hours of engineering that's gone into just making that happen. And the span is over 20 years. So just think how many engineers at how many companies working day and night
Right.
to make what you see on this video happening right now.
Well, even longer than 20 years.
Yes.
I mean, it's based on transistors and
Exactly.
the microprocessor and the...
Actually, the first wireless call was made in the 90s, early 90s,
Right.
by Qualcomm, using CDMA technology. So those type of things, people need to think like, oh, what am I holding in my hand and I can do all this stuff. It's your phone is more powerful than your desktop, really, if you think about it. It's really very powerful. And I think people need to parents need to take the time to explain to their kids if they believe they want to pursue science or something. Hey, think about how that was made. Why don't you go think about it? What all is involved, right? How do radio waves work? You know, how do electromagnetic waves work? It's all based on that.
Well, I mean, also ham radio operators used to be
Yes.
kind of
Very.
a lot more, it felt like a lot more popular at one point. I mean, wow, this guy could talk to a guy all the way across the world.
Yes.
And he has this radio that, you know, you could build that can
Exactly.
do it. But now, you
Now
want to
it-
talk to somebody across the world, you get WhatsApp and
Yeah,
you talk to them and like there's
Yeah, and I tell my parents also, like, you think about how far technology has come just from a different perspective. So taking from space to where we are today also, you know, being able to see a person across the world, just on video.
I mean, yeah, anybody can see anybody at any
Exactly,
time.
exactly. So I think you take that and then you look at what's happening in the space world, like where your interest lies also. It's pretty amazing what's going on there. I think you know, independent companies doing what NASA just used to do. I think is pretty amazing. I may disagree with all their approaches, but I think they should be helping NASA grow if they can, because there's a lot of pool of intelligent people who have a lot of experience there, and they can help them. I'm sure NASA is collaborating with them. I don't think it's just not a one-way street. So I think it's good that that's happening, and you know, there are now 3 companies. One, there's Blue Origin, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and then NASA. And if you look around the world, Russia is a leader, China is a leader, India is a leader in space, basically. And I don't know about England, but I think those are England, I think, just uses the US as a launch vehicle. But I think it's important to see how all those people are mixing their technologies to make things happen in space. And we don't think how many satellites there are. There are hundreds of thousands of satellites floating in
Oh
space.
my gosh, yes.
And we are putting
Zooming
more
around
out there.
the Earth.
Yes, and you just think how complicated that technology is.
Uh-huh.
There are radio waves going up and coming back. I think it's absolutely phenomenal what we are experiencing and what we'll experience in the future. So that's what I expect.
Have you heard of this commercial payload services program?
Yeah, I believe I've heard about it, where they want to take the passengers up to space. I've heard that part of it, and then I've heard of the part of the Mars program. I've heard about that, and also just taking it to the rim of the Virgin Galactic is just trying to take them to the boundary of the top atmosphere, basically, and show them just the Earth, and then bring them down. I've heard about that program. Yeah, so I've read about those programs. Yes.
One of the challenges with like space contracting and price is that you know, for the longest time the government choose cost plus contracting. So you know, they'll pay you whatever it takes for you to build the thing, and then a little bit more for your profit. And then that just encourages companies to be as expensive as possible.
Oh, okay.
And so now they're working on like some programs that are like fixed bid.
Oh,
So with this
Interesting.
commercial lunar payload services program, they're basically saying, hey, we have this experiment or this instrument. We want to get to this place on the moon. Tell us how much it would take for you to put it there for us.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
And there's like 15 companies that bid on these types
Oh,
of
that's
things.
interesting. I was not aware of
And
that.
2 of them are going to be landing packages on the moon next year.
Oh,
one
really?
is Astrobotics
Uh-huh.
in Pittsburgh, and the other one is Intuitive Machines here in Houston. But
Oh, really?
it's kind of,
Oh, that's pretty
Kind of a
amazing. I think
different
that's a
thing.
unique idea. I think that's a good idea to do something like that.
and they could do whatever they like. It's not 100% dedicated to the government package. It's kind of like the the main,
Anybody could do it.
Anybody could do it, but if they have extra capacity, they could do whatever they want to with it.
Oh, really?
So like Astrobotics is doing this thing with DHL, so you can actually pay to have like a an inert thing put on the moon
Oh,
for you.
Oh, wow.
As
That's
part of
pretty
that. So if you had like a little,
or maybe we should send something.
yeah,
over.
we can have like a little unscripted, piece of metal with
Yeah.
like our names or
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, we
something,
should-
and then
We should definitely look into that. I think people should do that.
yeah,
Excitement.
it'd be something different.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was not aware of that program. I heard about passengers, but I'm not aware of. I heard briefly about it, but not in detail in that fashion. That's good to know.
So what do you think about NASA going to the moon in 2024? I mean, do you think it's a good thing? Misplaced priorities? Like, what's your thoughts?
No, I think people have to think outside the box. As much as I sometimes disagree with, the priorities because we have enough of them on Earth, I think it's always good to expand your boundaries. So I think this is an expansive thing to think about, how we send someone outside of our planet and make colonies somewhere else. I think that's a unique thought process. It requires a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I think it's a good learning experience to think about how we can expand our footprint in the universe. And I think that's always good to think about. It's not easy. I'm sure there'll be thousands of challenges, not just one. But man has overcome challenges in the past, so I don't think this should be a challenge in that sense. It's just the problem is the timing it takes to move something from one place to the other. So the best solution to that is figuring out what type of source you need to get it there a lot faster than the time it takes now.
Or advanced planning?
Yes.
I mean,
Advanced planning or trying to figure out what do we really need, and apart from what type of fuels we are using to make our travel so much faster, like you see on the programs, warp speed, things like that, right?
I know,
Those are the type
wow.
of things you want to think about. How do you make it, don't just stay within the box, but figure out how do I make it so I can get there a lot faster instead of taking 7 months to get to Mars?
Yeah.
Can I make it in 2 weeks? What does it take to get it there in 2 weeks? So things like that you have to think about, and it's not easy because we don't have the solutions for that. And I think that's more important, apart from just getting a man to the moon. I think trying to figure out what it takes to get him there in less than an hour.
less than an hour.
Yes, I think about those things, right? How do I get the man to the moon? Once the rocket takes off, it just once it crosses the Earth's gravity, it should just be going off at such a fast speed that should just get there in a very short time. But I mean, an hour is obviously an exaggeration because the distance is very long. But what I'm saying is the shortest amount of time they can think of how to get there. So because that's the only way you can do the time-space lapse, right? How do you cross that boundary? That's what you have to figure out.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do you
just.
see any work being done in that area? I mean,
I have not heard of anything. I mean, I think people are just stuck on these old techniques of put more fuel, pump it up. I've not heard of anything. Anybody saying, I've come out with a way to get to the moon in less than 2 days, or I can get to Mars in a month. I've not heard anything about that.
Yeah.
Because Mars is still rotating around the sun anyway. So we should think about how do we get there faster. That's the only way you can convince people to really go into space, because this long time they're like, oh, I have to sit 7 months in a rocket.
I know there's no in-flight entertainment that's that
yeah,
good.
yeah. I don't care how many movies you watch, you can never get through 7 months of it. So I think that's the biggest challenge in my mind. I think getting someone to the moon, or I think first of all finding someone who would sit 7 months is a challenge.
Right.
I think
Both ways.
both ways. And I think the other challenge would be, even though they may think they can do it, I think by the time they get there, they would be out of their mind in about 30 hours.
Well,
Maybe even 48 or 56, or at some point they'd be like, oh, get me out of here, get me out of here. And I think people don't think about that. Unless it's an entire space capsule that's built like with a home, that's transporting this person across the space.
it needs to feel like a mall or a huge community, like a skyscraper
exactly.
type
So
thing.
basically, they should not have just one person. They should have a community of people.
Right, with
who are-
parks and
with something that's big enough that they can move around,
sure.
do the things that they normally would be doing, but not feel like they are really commuting to Mars.
Right.
It should be feel natural. I think that's important. And then also trying to figuring out how to get there fastest. That should be the entire thought process.
Reduce the time.
Reduce the time, because time is money, and time
Well,
also
time is life.
time is life too. It's both.
Yeah,
right?
time is also risk.
It's also risk. Yeah.
You know,
the
our
longer
sun
they are in the middle of space,
Yeah.
it's a higher risk for you.
Higher risk, yeah.
So I think there's all those things, and I've not seen anybody really saying to me, "Oh, we can use a nuclear source that will create this sort of fission, and we can really propel the guy like bang."
Yeah, I know. I like back in like the 50s or so, they thought maybe they could make a rocket with that would just put like nuclear bombs behind it and explode, and they have
Right.
like a whole chain of them, and it's like
Yeah, and you can think about that, and that's what you really need. You can propel like hundreds of thousands of kilometers, like in a span of like 5 minutes.
wow.
That's what you have to think about, and I think scientists really need to focus on that. Really need to focus on that.
I think though, if you look at just going between Europe and North America, I
Right.
mean, back whenever we had ships,
Right.
and that was the only way to go. How long did that voyage take?
Yeah, that was very long. I knew from Bombay to Bahrain, it used to take 7 days.
7 days.
Yes.
From Bombay to Bahrain, and that's you could fly that in 2 hours now.
Now it's 3 hours. Yeah.
3 hours,
Yeah,
okay.
max.
Yeah.
So that tells you something. Right?
Yeah.
So we can accomplish. We just need to put our minds outside of this box that says we need to really think about something, how to make things faster. Why are there fast cars?
Yeah.
Why are there fast planes? Even the Concorde is going to make a comeback, they say. So,
Oh, yeah, with like a boom, I
yeah.
think is.
yeah,
what they
exactly.
call it.
So, and they are working on that. They want to make your transatlantic flight like an hour or 2 hours or something like that. They're trying to figure out how to do that.
Did you hear that NASA is working on making supersonic airplanes that don't make a sonic boom?
Oh, I don't know. No,
You hadn't heard of that?
No, not.
Oh, good. So it's working.
Yeah, it's working. So it's working. So I think I heard about you had mentioned to me where they would take somebody up and then move
Yeah.
them down. So that was something.
SpaceX Starship. They're building it in Brownsville,
Oh,
Texas.
okay.
They're actually in Boca Chica right next to
Yeah.
Brownsville.
So I think that's the huge challenge in my mind. Getting somewhere there a lot faster.
Wow.
And then focusing on Earth priorities that I think they should give to somebody else, because NASA's charter is just to get somebody in space. So I think that's.
And plus, the first time we went to the moon, we had 3.5 billion people on the Earth. Now we have 7.
Yep.
That's 3.5 billion more brains to
Yes.
solve problems.
Exactly.
Except I think somehow we've kind of squandered it in a way.
I agree with you 100%. I think we've lost our way in some ways, and I think hopefully they'll figure it out. That's the hope.
Well, one last question. Do you have any interest in traveling to space, like for an orbital vacation?
I would really like to do that. Yes,
Yeah.
I would really like to go up in space and see Earth from the top. There's this app I have on my phone, so it's a live stream from the ISS space
Really?
station. Yeah, there's an
Oh,
app.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's called Live ISS HD. It's called.
Oh, okay.
And you get this broadcast directly from the space station when it's going over the Earth, like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, every hour it'll tell you sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise. So I think it does 2 laps in an hour. Every 30 minutes is doing 2 laps.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty fast, pretty amazing. They have night vision, night view, and everything else, and you can see all the cities lit up and all the boundaries. So I would really like to see that myself from space.
That'd be good. I think I think the next 10 years may be
May
a
make it
big
possible.
inflection.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I think
we
that's
have our
coming.
first publicly traded space tourist company.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so I think Virgin Galactic is traded publicly, so
Yeah.
SPCE. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think they want to charge $250,000.
That's what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'll get it down to maybe $5,000. I think
Maybe. There's been talks that actually their price may be going up in the short term because of demand and.
Oh, the demand, yeah. So,
have you, so.
so the initial people may pay a lot, but eventually I think it'll be a tourist type
Right.
attraction.
But the same thing was true with air travel. I mean,
Yep,
at
yep.
one point it was only rich people could travel.
Yep.
And now
Everybody can travel.
people could fly anywhere in Europe on Ryanair for like 30,
40 bucks.
30, 40 bucks.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's coming. I think in the next 10 years we might see that. You might be able to go to space for $2,500 and come back.
It'd be amazing.
Yes, I think it'll come. I think it'll surely come. I'm optimistic about that.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the